Alright, so at this point you should have your rear brakes mounted on both passenger and driver side, as well as your brake lines removed from the flex line connector, the T, to each brake. Should be completely removed, and then you also have you want to save your hardware from removal of that on all these areas, because we're going to reuse the hardware to mount the new brake lines and our SAR lines. Also, you've already removed your rear brake parking cables from each brake. At this point, you should remove the complete assembly from the parking brake back from the vehicle, because it's useless. So this will be the next box you're opening, which contains all of your vent hoses, which are these. You've got your brake lines, your flex lines for your service brakes. You've got thicker lines here for your parking brake side, the SAR side, as it says on the tag. And then you've got your service brake lines. And then in here you've got all your random hardware that we'll be using to install this, as well as fittings that'll be screwed into the brake, etc. So what we've got laid out here is the service brake lines, everything you'll need for the reinstallation of your service brake. Starting on this side, we've got a plug that's going to go in the front brake T up there. We'll go over that in a little bit. Then we've got an inverted flare union, which gets connected to the end of our bypass line, which will go in place of the load sensing proportioning valve, which gets removed. And then we've got our flex line that goes from our slave cylinder on the brake over here to the T at your OEM flex line, and both sides will have your banjo bolt fittings. These were in your brake box to begin with, and that will connect this to the slave cylinder. And then on the other side of the T, you'll have your hard line that goes over your differential and around your shock on the other side of the vehicle. And then you'll have a bracket here that will hold this in place, and this will get tied into here with a clip. And then you'll have the same as the other side, you'll have this connected to the slave cylinder with your banjo bolt fitting. Alright, so the first step of the service brake line installation is you're going to want to remove your load sensing proportioning valve from here. And as you can see, we left the bracket in, but that's all we left. You don't even need to leave the bracket in if you don't want to. So after removing the load sensing proportioning valve block, you will be installing your bypass line to the OEM flex line, which is down there, and you'll be using your inverted flare union to connect the two male ends of the brake lines, the top line, together. From there, after you're done with that, you're going to want to follow your bottom brake line all the way to the front of the vehicle where it comes to a T. The bottom brake line comes to this T here, and you're going to want to remove it and put that cap in that came in your hose kit. Alright, we'll be starting on the right side of the vehicle at the flex line. The OEM flex line comes into the T, and then our line gets screwed in to this side of the T. Your differential adapter breather is probably going to be on top of your pumpkin. This is an older vehicle. So this is going to run up and go to your slave cylinder, which I haven't connected yet on purpose. It's going to end up going in like this. And I'll show you how to use the banjo bolt that was in that box, that clear box from the brake package. So the first thing I usually do is take this bleeder and put this protective cap on it. right there. Then take the rest of the connection and screw it on here. Alright, so when you have that assembled, then you'll put your first crush washer of 2 on here, and then you'll come back and get your connection to the slave cylinder, and you'll put it through. Then you'll grab your other crush washer, slide it on this side, so you should have 2 copper colored crush washers on each side of the fitting. Then you want this tab to be at the bottom of the slave cylinder, so that when you screw it in, which I'll do right now, when you screw it in, this can only go that far. Okay, so this is bottoming out on here, so you can't get it to twist, and that's important. Then you can tighten this down with your wrench. Alright, so after completion of your first flex line to the T at the OEM flex brake line, you're going to want to connect your hard line that goes over your differential to the T, and then from there it'll come down all the way here around the shock and into your L bracket, which needs to be placed like that. And then you're going to slide the tab in to lock it in place when these 2 fittings are connected. And then you'll follow that up, and that'll go to the other slave cylinder on this side, connected just like you did on the previous one. So the only difference from this side to the other side is it has this L bracket here that holds everything in place. Alright, so the next step would be installing our high pressure parking brake lines. As you can tell, they're thicker lines than your standard service brake lines. So starting with the right side of the vehicle, you've got a connector, part number 97093. There will be 2 in here, except I took one out and put it at the other end. This will connect to the back of your brake, O-ring side into the brake. The flared side will go into your line, and then your line will go to a T, part number 97380, hydraulic fitting. And this T will connect these 2 lines here, and then also this hose which runs up to your premium pump pack in the cab. This will connect to the top of the T, which will be mounted with another L bracket. Notice there's a bigger hole on one side than the other. Your screw goes through this hole, and your top of your T goes into the bigger hole. So from there, you go over to the left side of the vehicle, and this will connect to the brake on the left side of the vehicle, and there is your other connector, O-ring side into the brake. At this point, if you haven't removed your quick connect fitting from the back of the brakes, and it's still pressurized with the hub released, you're going to want to bleed it out in order to remove it. So open your bleeder and release it. It's going to make a bit of a mess, and then you can take your wrench and remove your quick connect. Because now you'll be putting your connectors into the back of the brake that hook to your parking brake high pressure lines. So we just finished installing the SAR brake lines, the parking brake lines. Starting on the left side of the vehicle, you have this one which goes up and runs pretty close to your service line. We'll end up putting P-clips in there to keep them from rubbing, and it goes all the way over to the pumpkin where we put our T in, and the T, as you can see, has our high pressure premium pump pack line coming in from the top, which goes to the front cab, and then you have your two hard lines connected on both sides. And from there, it goes over the pumpkin and back by the T. And then as you get around the back, you can see it come down and enter into the fitting that we screwed into the back of the brake right here. Now, I've noticed on the newer vehicles that right at this shock and by this T here, this line can be pretty close, and it comes too close for comfort where it could rub. So I always like to take it and bend it out from the shock a little bit, kind of like so. Get it away from the shock as well as bring it away from the T a little bit. So that's one of your main bends. I mean, you'll make fine bends here and there, little bends, but that's your hardest bend to make, really. Alright, so this is our brake vent line kit. It's a part of your hose kit. It comes with brake lines, and the purpose of this is so that when the brakes heat up and cool down, they can expand and contrast as need be by letting the air in and out. So it comes with this elbow fitting, which goes on the top of the brake on the mounting adapter on the back side of the brake, and then this connects to that, and this fits inside of the hose. You got to press fit it, and then it goes to a T in the middle, which this hose will go off to the breather, which looks like this, and then it's got this to mount it on the truck. So you've got those two things, as well as a clamp for you to put on the hose to clamp it around this. So this will be on this end, and then from there you got the other line that goes to the other brake and goes to this press fit, which you put these on like so. Alright, so once you get this pressed on here, you can see the red tube goes all the way up to underneath the yellow. That way you know you've got it on far enough. Then you can screw this on onto this side, and obviously the O-ring side goes into the brake. And also, if these are too long for you, you can cut them down just using a razor knife or whatnot, a side cutters. You can cut them down to length, but I would have it all fit up there before cutting, because better to have more than not enough. Alright, so at this point we've mounted our air vent tubing kit. As you can see, it's connected to the top of the mounting adapter, and this is the left hand side of the vehicle. I'm going to follow that vent line down along the axle and then up to the pumpkin, which the vent line comes to the T, as you can see right there. Then from there, the other line goes over to the other brake on the right hand side of the vehicle and plugs into the mounting adapter there with the connector. Now I'll take you back to that T, and from there we've got the vent line that goes up along the bed. The bed's right above here, and then it goes down the right hand side of the vehicle all the way up to right behind the cab. And you can see it comes up right there. That's in between the cab. I've got it P-clipped right there, and then you can see we've got it mounted up top here. And here is an up-close view of what the air filter looks like, with the ring clamp around the hose holding it inside the hose, and then the bracket to mount it to your truck is right there. Now we recommend mounting this at least above the door handles on the vehicles because you don't want this to be submerged in water. We'd just like to verify that you hook your vent lines up to the mounting adapter here, like this shows, and not hooked up to the brake housing fill port. This is where you fill your oil. You don't want to hook your vent line up there. So make sure it's in there. Alright, so after running your vent lines and attaching all that, you can go ahead and put all your P-clips to hold all your two brake lines, your SAR line, your service line, and your vent hoses. You're going to want to use as many P-clips as you can to keep everything in place and not bouncing around or rubbing on anything. So as you can see here with the SAR line and vent hose that I double P-clipped them, I used the proper size P-clips, and then I put a bolt through with a nut to hold them to each other, okay? So you're going to want to do that in various locations, but here's all the P-clip locations that I have. Here's for your service line on the back side of the axle, and then we go up to our T, and you've got a double P-clip here holding the vent line to the high pressure hose that goes up to your premium pump pack, and that follows the vent line all the way to the front with P-clips holding it in place in different places here, all the way up to the front, as you can see. So the pump pack core hose is going to go into the cab, and the vent hose is obviously going to go in between the cab and the bed to be mounted up high. Now we'll come back to where the T was and show you that there's another double P-clip right here with a nut and a bolt holding it together, okay? And then down here we've got a double P-clip holding this flex line to the SAR line right here, and there's a bolt location right here. Now here's another view from the back side of the axle, left side of the vehicle right here. You're going to see that P-clip location right here for your service line, and then there's also another P-clip location on the other side of that T with that bracket, so you can see both sides. And then we go down to where I was just showing you the double P-clip location here. Now you're going to want to use as many P-clips as possible. It's better to have more than not enough. At this point, you're going to want to go back and make sure that all your service brake and parking brake hard lines are fully tightened down so you don't have any leaks. And also you can remove your clamp on your flex line and start letting the .3 come through the system.